At the beginning of the pandemic, so back in January, February time, many customers did have plans around cybersecurity and did find cybersecurity, did deem it as being important. But post-pandemic, what we saw is we saw a big shift and a big shift in the way that people work. So a lot more people today are working remotely than have ever worked before in the past. And also what we're seeing with more people working remotely is we're seeing different types of cybersecurity and different types of attack vectors coming through as well. And as part of that, and as part of what we've seen, many of the customers out there are having to change the way they actually look at cybersecurity. So when you think about cybersecurity, users now need to connect from anywhere, from any device, from any location. We can't actually see the users coming to the office, so we can't verify them in the same way. So we're having to use different techniques to protect them as and when they connect to the network. An example of that might be multi-factor authentication as an example. So rather than just a username and password, we need to go a step further, and we actually need to secure the user in a second form of a factor authentication at the device level as well. So all of these are contributing to the shift and the importance around cybersecurity and how extremely important it is more than ever post-pandemic for their organizations. We saw a huge jump in cybersecurity threats, around about 25% increase in threats since the start of COVID-19. And when we think about threats, a common thing that we're seeing a lot more of as well, as people are working remotely, we're seeing attacks on virtual private networks, so users connecting into the corporate network through their VPNs. So we're seeing a lot of attackers target those particular sites. We're also seeing a lot of malware get loaded onto websites with information about the pandemic. And actually, when users click through on those websites, it's actually pulling malicious payload down to their computer and executing. So we're seeing a lot of attacks targeted around that. We're also seeing a lot of email phishing campaigns that are also targeting users around the pandemic as well. So all of these components have actually increased the jump in cybersecurity threats post-COVID-19. Part of the challenge that a lot of companies had was that they weren't really prepared for the pandemic. So in the research, we sort of showed that 54% of organizations in the APJC region were somewhat prepared, whereas 7% were not prepared at all for the shift to remote working at the onset. So this created a situation that many cybersecurity and IT workers had to adapt. Companies moved from business continuity planning directly into execution mode as well. So a large portion of Asia Pac customers also witnessed increase in cybersecurity challenges that they faced. And all of this compounded. Around a third of organizations expect more than half of their employees to stay remote working post-pandemic as well. So we're going to see this is a unique opportunity for a fundamental change in the approach to cybersecurity, and also ensure us that the future of remote working is smooth, seamless, and most importantly, is secure. So companies really need to transform their approach, and this is really given the job to do that and to move faster as well. So I believe that the conditions are certainly right to do this. Also in our survey, we captured information to say that 85% of organizations, as we spoke on the first point, now see cybersecurity as extremely important and more important than prior to the pandemic. And 70% plan to increase their cybersecurity investment. Again, that's the highest across all of the regions that we surveyed as well. And some interesting things about protecting the users and protecting the data as well. Cybersecurity has historically been overly complex, and 61% of the Asia Pac organizations said that they lacked employment education, and awareness was the biggest issue. So how do we go about educating the users around cybersecurity that they faced when they looked at reinforcing protocols around remote working? And another big problem that we see around cybersecurity is that many organizations have too many tools to manage, and their cybersecurity posture is far too complex. So there's a huge opportunity there as well for a lot of these companies to really consolidate and get better visibility into what they're doing end to end from a cybersecurity perspective.